Thank you, Satish, for that wonderful, wonderful rendition of Neelambari. I have not danced to live music for a while now, and I was waiting for when it would be my turn, watching my friends and Vasoka and all dance over the past few weeks as you've been singing. And this particular rendition actually brought a lot of questions to my mind. One of them being that Neelambari primarily, I mean, we all know that ragas have moods, right? And Neelambari is supposed to be that a slumberous, slow one. Usually, it is. I have used it most often in lullabies. In that usage. In fact, if our audience remembers, we did Uyala Lunga Vaya some time back, which was a lullaby. But here it's pure Shringar. And this aspect of Neelambari is a different aspect altogether. Apart from that soothing nature of the lullaby, even while I was portraying it, I couldn't imagine it being sung in any other raga because it was just so apt for that slightly meditative, wandering mindset of the Naika in this particular one. Could you just tell us a little bit more about the various moods of Neelambari? What are, or maybe give us some examples of some different, like just now we discussed two aspects of Neelambari. Are there more, or why is it that it is so apt for Shringar as well as for I would say Vatsalya because that is what I mean the Vatsalya aspect of Shringar because of the lullaby aspect. So, kuch.
Yes, Akka, as you rightly said, the raga is associated with Vatsalya Rasa, predominantly a lullaby relationship between that of a mother and a son. But there are many compositions that are there available in different moods, obviously. As we discussed earlier, also, it's because of the Sahitya that the mood comes out. So, of course, we have padams, that are sarcastic in nature, Ninda Stuti, that are there in Bhairavi. One cannot imagine Bhairavi in a Ninda Stuti,
Yeah.
but we have Mogatai Kati,
Yeah.
which is a Ninda Stuti. So the Sahityam, as we had discussed earlier, brings out the different bhavas. In the same way, Neelambari also, though it is strongly associated with Vatsalya Rasa, we have this Sringara Padam, and then we have Bhakti Padams also. Like for example, we have Kriti Amba Nilayatakshi of Muthuswami Dikshitar or Amba Neelambari of Tanjavur Quartet that are pure stutis to Devi. We have Shringara Lahari, Ashrita Jana Shubhakari on Devi,
Okay.
which is in Neelambari. Then, of course, we have the lullabies that we discussed of Tyagaraja Swami. So, different compositions giving different moods Shringara, Bhakti, lullaby, all of such compositions are there in Neelambari.
I'm not, as I have repeatedly told our audience, I am not a musical person. In the sense, I'm not a musician. But this idea of this Neelambari's layout of the swaras, if you could give us maybe some idea of, because I have a feeling, does it have the what do you call it, the softer, the komal swaras more in Neelambari? Because that is what it seems to me, that the gentleness of that ragam seems to come from those softer notes rather than the middle notes. Is that how it is? Or
Actually, it has to do with the way the notes are used. It does not have komal swaras, but actually it has all the shuddha swaras.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's a Janyu of Shankarabaranam.
Okay.
So, like I'll just demonstrate the Aronam Avarunam for our understanding. So it's Sari Gama Pani Sa Sani Pama Gari Ga Sa. So these are notes taken from Shankarabaranam. But I think it is the oscillations, the gamakas that bring out the softer aspect of Neelambari. When you sing Shankarabaranam,
Yeah, Shankarabaranam is not soft by any
by any
stretch of imagination.
it can be used softly, but that Shankarabaranam is more vibrant. It's a Rakti Raga, sung elaborately in a concert. But in Neelambari, usually that softer approach to the notes are brought in the raga phrases itself. So the Sarigama, this lingering, the
Yeah.
what do you call it, meandering.
Yeah, meandering on that note.
On that note, sir, that kind of gives you that lullaby effect. Or tarana, that long stretch of the note. Sa ni da ni za ni pa probably brings that that rocking of the cradle.
Yeah,
that
it's
effect.
actually it's
that
that
is
that I
brought
think
in.
is very very particularly indicative of Nilambari.
Yes.
This lilt.
Yes, this.
I think that for us as dancers, it makes a lot of sense to understand part of this, because especially when we are in the process of doing compositions or choreography, what aspect of that ragam is going to bring forth which aspect of the expressive content is which is why we started this entire series of discussions with Satish in order to understand this. And this, because when I was doing also, Satish, in the previous week I was discussing with Madini that, the same compositions are sung in different ragams. Now, Nilambari for this just seems so right that it is impossible to imagine this being sung in another ragam, at least for me. But when we were discussing with you and I told you that we are going to do this, you asked me, Akka, will we be doing it in Kalyani or in Nilambari? Now,
Yes.
as ragams, Kalyani and Nilambari are so different.
Yes.
So do you have any idea of how the Kalyani composition goes?
Yes, Akka. Like, I'll sing from the Kutila Kuttali only, the Anupallavi, with which we usually start the Padam in Nilambari version also. So, in this Kutila Kuntali, we start in the middle octave, which is, how should I say, it's kind of a soft approach in which the wandering comes out beautifully, as you rightly explained in the beginning. But in the Kalyani version, I think it starts in the Tara style. I'll just sing it for you.
Okay.
So I think Kotila Kuntali Mova Gopaluda Peru. It's in Mishal Chapu, and the raga starts in the Tara style. So I think there is more of an excitement in this approach.
Yeah, the mood is totally different.
It's very different.
Now, I would like to tell our audience, just recently I discovered that there is actually a book which segregates Kshetragya's padams according to the Ashtanayika. And according to that book, Kutila Kuntali is a Vipralabdhanayika. And yet in Atte's treatment of Kutila Kuntali, it's actually Ayoga Shringaram, where she hasn't met the Nayaka at all. And therefore it cannot be Vipralamba.
Right.
Because Vipralamba is when they have experienced and then been separated. Now, Ayoga Shringaram is there's only expectancy, and there's this joy of anticipation and of wondering and what is going to happen. Now,
probably there is more of an excitement in the Kalyani version.
But the fact is that this is not. It is. I think in Atte's choreography, the feeling, and that is why Nilambari is so apt for it, is of that quiet internal longing.
Yes.
Of wondering, how is he? What does he look like? I have heard of him. Will he not come here? And there is this, and always saying, no, it's not that he's deceitful. He's just not been here. It's that aspect of gentleness. I don't see that in a Kalyani, which is such a bridal ragam. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. There's just so much out there in Kalyani.
Yes.
And even the way you started it. Yes. So it's very difficult to unite these two treatment of the same song as the same presentation. Yet the words lend themselves to Kalyani just as much they lend them to Nilambari. It's just, I think, that the choreography that we are following is set for Nilambari. Now, in this discussion, taking this discussion further, what I would like to ask you is, we've all seen that the same compositions are very often sung in different ragams. The entire Ashtapadis, the Geet Govind. I don't know how many versions of it I have heard, and all of them are treated as if they are the original, you know. And in Sopana Sangeetam, I think there's a totally different way of singing version of it. Of course, in Kalakshetra, I know that it was set to music separately. How does one assign a composition to a composer? Because as we know that the old poets were also musicians and composers, and they sang their own compositions. But how do you know which ragam was originally intended for it? How do you? And in different books, sometimes they give it as different ragams. So it's very confusing. And also the talams, you know, the Oedipus are different. So how does one assign a particular composition to a particular composer and say that, okay, these two are aligned and this is the original?
This is a beautiful question, Akka, because as a student of music, I've always been very, very inquisitive about who's the music composer for compositions in which only the lyrics are available. Basically, when you see in many examples, in many instances, the musician who is like presenting a concert would say that this is an Annamacharya Kriti or this is a Jayadeva Ashtapadi, but he or she would in most cases would not announce the music composer's name, because the lyrics are only available, they were available through Talapatras in case of Annamacharya. In case of Jayadeva, I don't know, maybe they were available in Talapatras, then later, you know, when the print media came in, you know, they were compiled into a book and given. So it is a wonderful composition of so many senior musicians who took these compositions, they tuned them, and that's how the versions for Jayadeva's Ashtapadi or Annamacharya's composition, or even for many of the Purandaradasa compositions, are available to us. Even for Narayana Tita, like the raga would be mentioned in the script, but the musician would probably tune it in the same raga that is mentioned in the Talapatra, or
but maybe the Varnametta would be different.
Varnametta would be different, obviously, because we would not know what the Varnametta is. Or the musician may choose to select some other raga which, according to him or her, would suit the Ashtapadi or that composition better than the name of the raga that is mentioned in the text. So the thing is that of all the composers who we have just mentioned, they are pre-Trinity composers. They are before the Tyagaraja, Muthuswami Dikshit and Shyama Shastri. Why the Trinity's compositions are more important is because the Trinity, of course, like the pre-Trinity composers, were Vagyakaras, for whose compositions are available to us with a source, with the notations, the Varnametta, and there are schools, there are Shishya Paramparas who had carried on these compositions through oral traditions.
Would you say that this was also because in the later years there were defined patrons of these Vagyakars who made it possible for them to actually, spend time doing this, or they had maybe court documenters or maybe Shishyas who actually wrote them down? Because in the earlier days, maybe, because I don't even know, I'm sorry, I'm sounding really ignorant, but we don't really delve into the lives of all the composers, and the ancient composers may not have had the luxury of
writing notations.
Of writing.
No, it's again a fantastic question, because I was reading about this particular thing of documentation of the compositions of Trinity, and I saw certain interviews also. Actually, if you look at an authentic source of compositions among the works of Trinity, it is only Muthuswami Dikshita's work that is available through Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini.
Okay.
Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini was a work that was brought out by Muthuswami Dikshita's great grandson Subrahma Dikshita.
Okay.
At the request of, with the patronage of the Ettayapuram Maharaja, where he was living. So those people financed the work, and then he got it published, and many Dikshita compositions and many other compositions of the Trinity and compositions of the Tanjore Quartet and rare compositions of other lesser known composers were brought out. Lakshana Granthas, Lakshana Geetas of Venkatamakhin, the school of music which the Dikshita family followed, those were brought out. Sancharis of the ragas were given by Subrahma Dikshita in that work. So with Gamaka symbols, kuris, those compositions were published.
So that they were absolutely
the same,
documented in a grammatical manner.
In a grammatical manner, and the way they were rendered probably in those times. So there is, of course, a great difference between what is given in the notations and what is being sung by different
Traditional.
people and
Yeah.
schools. But in the Sangita Sampradaya Pradarshini, Subramanya Dikshit also mentions that though this notation is there, people should follow the Guru Parampara, the old tradition, the old system of the music, the Bani that they had been following. People are free to follow that Bani. It doesn't mean that those Bani or those schools of music are wrong. Even though they may contradict the version that is there in Sangita Sampradaya Prashni. He says that there are different Banis that exist for these compositions. They may follow their own Banis, but this is like a work that he kind of brought out, of course, with the knowledge that he had of those Dikshita Kritis that were there in his family, in the lineage to which he belongs. But when we talk about Tyagaraja Swami and Shyama Shastri Akka, in Tyagaraja Swami, three schools are known, those who have brought out the work of Tyagaraja. One is the Valajapeta school. Valajapeta Venkatramana Bhagavatar was one of the main disciples of Tyagaraja. One is the Umenalpuram school and one is the Tillai Sthanam school. If you look at those versions, it is again surprising because for many kritis the versions differ. And they are actually direct Sishya Paramparas from Tyagaraja. So for same kriti you will have different versions. The Valajapeta version is different. So ascribing the right version for a particular kriti is very difficult.
Actually, this is very interesting because this reminds me of Tagore. Of course, Tagore is not a Tyagaraja or a Muthuswami Dikshitar, but to us Bengalis he is. And the idea is that Tagore himself used to sing the same song in various versions. He would, and in many cases, the same tune has been used for different pieces of poetry. So he's done it both ways. He's used the music repeatedly, or he's used the words in different, and used his own music, his own poetry in a different place, maybe in a dance drama that he has put together. And there the music has been sung differently. So I'm assuming that some of the changes were done by, even what you're saying about Tyagaraja's three schools seems to bear it out, that some of those changes were done by the composers themselves at different times. And I also believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that because they did not document it themselves, as the mood struck them when they were singing it the next time, they picked up another ragam that they were familiar with and sang it because it seemed apt in that ragam. That also could be a reason that even though they are different ragams, they are still considered authentic and original because that is what the composers themselves would have sung at various times. And I'm only going by the fact that since I know for a fact that Tagore himself sang the same song differently at different times because the moods were different, or he just didn't remember what he had composed the last time and did it this time, I think that is one way of explaining these little disparities that we constantly notice. And it has been something that has interested us. It's also troubled us a lot as dancers because when we say that, okay, we need this sung, we as dancers don't really delve that much into what are the different versions. So we automatically assume if I've told you we're going to do Kutile Kuntali, you'll know that it's in Nilambari. Yes. It's in our heads like that. That there are versions are things that we come to know the more we discuss with you all. And that is why these conversations are so important. Because when we have these conversations with our musicians, that is when we come to know what are the various layers to the music without which we cannot dance. Our music can exist without dancing, but dancing cannot exist without music. And we therefore need to understand these nuances. And that's why I keep notifying you and trying to get different aspects of it out.
Yes. One more reason why I think there are differences in the versions, Akkad, even though the compositions may be in the same raga. Let's say, take an example of, say, one Tyagaraja Kriti. I'm not naming the Kriti, but say the Kritis are sung little differently in every school, or probably very differently in every school. Is that according to Sangeeta Kalanidhi Srimati R. Vedavalli Amma would say that if you give a notation to somebody to read, say the musician knows how to read the notation and learn the composition from the notation, and if you give it to say 4 musicians, all 4 of them would sing it little differently from each other.
Yes.
Because the way you interpret the notation is also different. you don't know what kind of gamakas to be used. So according to your own experience of the raga, you use it, and that's how I think the difference starts creeping in every level, and then I think they become different.
Actually, that is also true of dance. That's true of how, even though everybody says that we are from ex-Bani, which is a new term, ex-Bani of dance, you look at it and you see that, we don't do it like that. They're supposed to be from the same
school.
And every time that somebody teaches, a little bit changes. And I guess that is the little bit of the negative as well as the whole bit of the positive of our traditional arts, because that is what keeps them dynamic, that is what keeps them changing, and that is why tradition and time in India have managed to keep step with each other. Otherwise, tradition would get left behind and time would march on saying, that's old, that's gone. But everybody takes it up and adds a little bit, I think, or changes a little bit, and a little nuance is added that makes it comfortable for the times that we are in. And that just, and in fact, I'm very, very impressed with all these youngsters who are coming up with absolutely modern digital sound, but ancient lyrics. They're even quoting the Vedas, they're singing from the Tantras. I'm really impressed because in between there was a time when our ancient texts had completely sort of disappeared. And the youngsters were just not engaging. And this, if we can't do it like this, I don't think there's any other way that we can bring it forward. Of course, as dancers, we have this wonderful advantage of being able to carry it forward through dance, through an expressive medium that engages more than just music, because music also needs to be understood. Dance can be seen and sort of perceived, and that's a good amalgamation for carrying tradition forward. Satish, thank you for this conversation, but we have Chembei with us today. As you know, as you saw today, we had a full bench. We had a full bench in our orchestra, and I'm deeply grateful to all of them for having agreed to have come. And of course, I can't let this chance of Chembei come join us, of Chembei being here and not asking him a few questions. Now, Chembei, when I saw him first, when he first became a part of Kinkini Dhvani, was really a youngster. I think it must have been 12, 15 years ago when he first joined us. And since then, on and off, and now almost as an Asthana Vidwan of Kinkini Dhvani, he has been there. Again, while musically we always tend to engage with the vocalist and the mridangist, because they are the two main points for a dancer to connect with. Over the years, as we have been doing our dance drama compositions and other compositions, we've realized how much what the vocalist brings forward also depends on what his support system is, where he is getting the notes, unless the musicians playing with him leave off in that realm. He cannot pick up from there and bring it back. And it's very difficult unless you have a certain level of rapport between the musicians. If you don't like each other, you can't sing and play with each other. It's as simple as that. I think that is something that we all feel, which is why I find it so beautiful that every time we bring somebody in, that person becomes a member of the family. And you have become a member of the Kinkini Dhvani family. Satish has grown up in Kinkini Dhvani almost now. So tell us a bit about when did you come to begin to start playing as in accompaniment of dance? எப்படி ஆஞ்சல் எப்படி உங்களுக்கு தோணித்து சரி நான் சோலோயிஸ்ட் இல்லை நான் இந்த மாதிரி அக்கம்பெனி பண்ணாலும் எனக்கு அந்த லெவலுக்கு சாட்டிஸ்ஃபேக்ஷன் வரும்? எப்போ வந்திருந்தீங்க? when did you start playing for?
நமஸ்காரம்.
ஒருக்க பேசுப்பா.
நமஸ்காரம். ஸோ என்னை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் என்னோட ஸ்கூலிங்ஸ் முடிஞ்ச உடனே நான் படித்தது வந்துட்டு தமிழ்நாடு கவர்மெண்ட் மியூசிக் காலேஜில். ஸோ நான் கம்ப்ளீட் பண்ணினது 1998. ஸோ 2001 எனக்கு இங்கே டெல்லி வரக்கூடிய ஒரு வாய்ப்பு கிடச்சிது. ஸோ 2004ல் நான் உங்ககிட்ட வாசிக்கிறதுக்கு வந்தேன்.
As I said, 14, 15, 16 years now. Yes.
2004 2005ல் வாசிக்கிறதுக்கு வந்தேன். அப்பத்துலேருந்து மெதுவாக பழக்கமாகி அக்கானே சொல்லக்கூடிய அளவுக்கு அந்த ஒரு உரிமை கிடைச்சது. அது பெரும்பாலும் எல்லாருக்கும் கிடைக்கிறது கஷ்டம். அதனால வந்துட்டு அந்த ஒரு உரிமை கிடைச்சது. அதாவது இவளோட குரு வந்து இவன் எப்படி அத்தைன்னு சொல்லிப்பாளோ, அந்த அத்தை இவளுக்கு என்ன ஒரு ஸ்நேகம் காட்டிருப்பா, பாசம் காட்டிருப்பாளோ, அது எங்களுக்கு இவ அக்காவா இருந்துட்டு எங்களுக்கு அது காட்டக்கூடியதுலேருந்து எங்களுக்கு தெரியறது அந்த ஸ்நேகம்னா என்ன சொல்லிட்டு. ஸோ அதுதான் ரொம்ப முக்கியம்னு கருதுகிறோம். இது போல என்ன போல நிறைய ஒரு கலைஞர்களுக்கு கிங்கினி துணியில அவ வாய்ப்பு கொடுத்துட்டு இருக்கா, வாசிக்க வச்சுட்டு இருக்கா, எல்லாம் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கிறதுல வந்து ரொம்ப பெருமையா இருக்கு, ரொம்ப மகிழ்ச்சியா இருக்கு. என்ன நீங்க
உனக்கு எப்போ தோணித்து நீ வந்து இந்த மாதிரி accompanying artist இருந்துட்டு நீ வாசிக்கலாம் அப்படி எப்போ? When you came to Delhi, did you come as an accompanying artist? Did you come as a soloist? Did you come for a job? எப்படி வந்த டெல்லிக்கு? எப்படி வந்த?
வாய்ப்புகள் தான். இன்னைக்கும் நம்ம வந்துட்டு ஒரு சார் சொல்ற மாதிரி வந்துட்டு அவர் இடையில நாங்கள் ஸ்டில் நோ வி ஆர் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் சொல்லி சொல்றாரு. அவர் ஒரு மகா வித்வான். அவரு இருந்தாலும் வந்துட்டு அவர் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்னு சொல்லிட்டு இருக்கும் போது வந்துட்டு எல்லாருமே வி ஆர் ஆல் மியூசிக்கல் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் தான். இன்னைக்கு அது ஒரு ப்ரோக்ராம்ல நம்ம அதுக்கு உண்டான அந்த ஒரு ஜஸ்டிஸ்னு சொல்லக்கூடிய அந்த ஒரு நம்ம அதுக்கு உண்டான இது பிரதிபலன் செய்யறோமா இல்லையாங்கிறது வந்துட்டு நமக்கு தெரியாது. அவங்க அடுத்தடுத்து ப்ரோக்ராமுக்குன்னு
செய்யலன்னாக்க நாங்க கூப்பிட மாட்டோம் இல்லையா? So for those of our audience who are not following what he's saying, is a very humble, a person with a great deal of humility, but a very fine artist and a great deal of eagerness to learn. And his idea of am I doing justice is actually every time that he comes, he is eager to learn. And of course, whenever they come to Kinkini Dhvani and the work that we do, everybody says romba vela vaangrel. But that is how I guess we all grow, and that is the fun part of being together. And with Chembei it has been, because again, like I said, the rapport that exists, that kinship, it's like I said, it's a family, and that family feeling allows us to correct each other, to talk to each other, to say ஏப்பா இப்படி வாசிக்கிறாய், இந்த மாதிரி வாசிச்சுன்னா it's not going to be taken amiss. ஐயோ நான் வந்து ஒரு ஆர்டிஸ்ட் எனக்கு வந்து இப்படி பேசுறாங்களே, that doesn't happen. And that is part of the exchange that I would really like to share with the world outside. With musicians, it's not that the musicians are a group and the dancers are another group. Unless we blend together, unless we're actually in connection with each other on every front, on being able to speak with each other when we want to. If I have an issue, I have to be able to tell the musicians. If they have an issue, they have to be able to tell us. And then that is when the presentation, the combined Sangeeta that includes Nritya, becomes something that is worth watching. That becomes something that one goes away feeling good about. And it is not easy. As I said, when the first time when I spoke with Satish, when we started this series of exchange with our musicians, was all of them are brilliant artists in their own right. But when they are on stage, sitting there accompanying a dancer, they have to tone themselves down and become somebody who becomes the fabric on which the design of the dancer comes up. And that is not easy. That is not easy if you have a sense of ego, a sense of pride. One must have a sense of pride in what they are giving. I must give my best no matter what I'm doing. And that is what all the musicians that I have had the fortune of engaging with ever since I have come back to Delhi and started dancing. And we have worked with the best, the most prolific musicians here. And they have all had this beautiful sense of being able to tone themselves down and yet bring the best in their music up so that the dancer has something to work off of. And Chembei, let me tell you, in public, you have done that for us. And that is why we enjoy having you with us. That's why we enjoy having you as part of our orchestra. And we keep calling you. And it is also, all of us who have students will know that it is one of the greatest gifts that the musicians can give when they make the students feel comfortable. When they don't make them feel like, oh, you don't know anything, please don't waste our time. And that is what, especially this lot, when Chandru's there, when Ganesh was there, they're playing, they're sitting there explaining the talam. All of that has made so much of a difference to my students. For that, I would like to thank all of you, because you all have made them feel very comfortable. And that is an essential part of the exchange that we have with our musicians. Thank you so much, both of you. I'm just so overwhelmed at the fact that I had a complete live orchestra today, and it wouldn't have happened if Satish hadn't insisted. I would have continued with such as Ni Padpa, I will dance like everybody else was doing. But he said, we are in the same space, Akka. I'm going to be there sitting where you are sitting. This is not a Zoom call. So let us have more musicians. And we did. And you all came despite all these constraints and restrictions, and one mustn't move, one mustn't go. And thank you so much for that. And I'm sure that our audience enjoyed it. That brings us to an end of the Kshetra Padam series. But I'm going to find something else to keep Satish engaged. But don't go anywhere, because we have today Ganesh, and everybody who knows Kinkini Dhvani knows that Ganesh has been with us since we started. We have called Ganesh onto a Zoom call after this. Stay tuned. We will be talking about all that goes into that part of music. Till then, stay tuned.